Hey, this is Joshua with Cultural Catholic coming at you with another Friday domestic video. So there are three stories I want to talk about. One is Donald Trump a year into his presidency and his approval rating. Second, a new decision by the Trump administration dealing with healthcare professionals and religion. And finally, probably the most important thing, the possibility of there being a government shutdown. So 538 today, with the first story, went into the history of president polling. Um, and this goes as far back as Harry S. Truman, which is when we started doing polling of presidents. So back to 1945 when he first started. And it has shown that since that time, the up until today, the least popular president a year into office was Gerald Ford, and his was 44-39, 44 approve, 39 disapprove. However, President Trump is at a 40 approval, 55 disapproval. So that is wildly uh, uh, unpopular. And what's even more interesting is that 538 also broke it down a little bit further to net approval, which is basically the approval minus the disapproval. And President Trump is the only one whose net approval a year in is negative. It's at negative 15. However, what he is average among presidents in that he is about as popular a year in as he was at the beginning, if I remember that correctly. One quick moment. No, at 175 days in, he was at about a 39% approval rating. And now he is at a 40% approval rating, which is about average for presidents, um, which is weird because you wouldn't think that he's as popular as he is. You, if you get what I mean. But it's average for presidents to at the halfway point and the end of the first year to be about even, or for to be about even. Um, Although if presidents are more popular than are 50% or more popular, there's actually a net loss in their approval rating, whereas those who are lower, it's going to be about even. So it was a little inaccurate, but it's not uncommon. Um, and the fact that that is the case for President Trump is weird, but overall, 538 explains that he is overall the most unpopular president a year in, and it's unusual that he is as unpopular as he is. But if you've been paying close attention, which I'm hoping the people who are starting to watch this frequently are as engaged as I am. Next, so a few earlier this week, um, the Trump administration decided that healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, um, could be shielded for not providing care or assistance to those whose lifestyle choices or lifestyle decisions disagree with their religious belief. So hypothetically, a plastic surgeon could deny a transgender patient their services to go through gender reassignment surgery, which include plastic surgery to make like a man look more like a woman or a woman look more like a man to fit who they actually are. Um, or a pharmacist could deny a woman birth control pills. Um, it's marked under the guise of protecting religious freedom, which is important. The United States is founded on religious freedom. The First Amendment does state that individuals are given the freedom of religion, meaning they can practice whatever religion they want, so long as it does not affect others around them. Additionally, the 14th Amendment does provide equal protection under the law, meaning which basically means if I am, which means I'm actually not going to use a me example, but say an African American person is arrested because someone did a robbery and cops decide to racial profile. Racial profiling is is illegal under the 14th because of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, because police typically don't racially profile white people. That's just how it works. Um, and so and it was and the 14th Amendment is attached to the abolition of slavery amendments, which is over 150 years old at this point. Um, uh, However, this is a common theme that we've been seeing with religious conservatives, and this odds are this will be done and used by conservative Christians. And if, say, a conservative Muslim were to do the same thing, or a conservative Jew were to do the same thing, it might not get the same force of protection with the Trump DOJ, um, simply because that's just how it's appearing with who is in the cabinet and such. Um, I have no reservations that this will be challenged in courts up to the Supreme Court, although I have very little faith in the Supreme Court at this point in time, because it is 5-4 conservative, and Kennedy may or may not go with side with the liberals, but I'm not entirely sure. Um, but yeah, that is an interesting development, and they also, on top of that, uh, if I remember correctly, and I could, nope, they also, the Trump administration also, in the past year, which is kind of connected to this, overturned a regulation that all employers need to include in their health insurance access to birth control. So this is just another pander. This is just another step in pandering to religious conservatives, particularly evangelical Christians, done by the Trump administration. However, the big story is the government possibly shutting down. So over the last few days and weeks, we've been seeing this giant debate in the Senate and the House with the White House about how to best fund the government. Democrats and Republicans equally want to fund the government. However, the way we've been doing it over the past few decades is doing short-term spending bills that go for like a month or two, instead of doing a long-term funding. And this is another one of those short-term. This will only last about a month, go to February. Um, and Democrats not only want to include funding for the government, they also want to include funding for CHIP and DACA. However, Republicans are using CHIP and DACA as kind of like leverage points to get things that they want, and Trump wants, including the border wall. And the House, in a largely party line vote, was able to pass something yesterday. Um, and DACA and CHIP are still on. DACA is still a unused bargaining chip on the Republican side. It's still being hung over the Democrats' head, even though the Democrats earlier this week, last week, offered a bill that could kind of offered a deal that could have included funding for the wall, included DACA, included some protections for some individuals some families who have temporary protected status or TPS, typically mostly those who have citizen children. But that is the whole shithole gate. Um, but yeah, this spending bill includes funding for CHIP. However, it's unlikely, and actually, as of the recording of this video, the Senate has kind of killed the spending bill. There are 50 Republicans who were ready to vote on this. 50, even though they're technically 51. However, John McCain is currently undergoing treatment for brain cancer, and it's unlikely that the spending bill will go into will that is that had was voted on by the House will end up being passed because for this particular legislation they need 60 votes instead of a simple majority. Um, but yeah, this could be another 2013, although hopefully Republicans are punished this time instead of Democrats like it was last time. And additionally, I hope they do find something because while the Republicans saying that troops that are defense and things like that will be harmed, that's actually untrue. All essential aspects of the government, such as defense and things of that nature, will still be active. It's just that they won't get paid, whereas other parts of the government will shut down and not do anything. Um, and that is a huge hit to our economy. But yeah, at this point in time, it does not look like there will be a funded government and there will be a shutdown for a few days, most likely. However, McConnell is planning on keeping the Senate in session over the weekend to try to get something passed. It's actually very common for spending bills to not be passed on time. The last time that happened was in 1996, and ever since it's just been a few days late. But yeah, this is the important news of the week. This is Joshua Zeller with Cultural Catholic signing off.